The Big Bang Zhilei Zhang versus Joseph Parker, 12 rounds in the heavyweight division. There's a lot at stake here for both men. I'm not fully sure where I'm going to go here. Now, there's going to be people who saying, man, these two have fought before. Yes, I think they fought in the amateurs, and Zhang got the best of Parker during that time. But that was so far long ago, it's hard to extract anything from that fight. They're two different fighters at different stages in their careers. This is a 50-50 fight to me. So let's get into it. Let's start with the Big Bang. Zhilei Zhang, 26 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 21 wins by way of knockout. Zhang has been around now since 2014, right? And he's 40 now. 40 years old. But it does seem like he is a guy that has been improving as he's been getting older. Father Time is going to be Father Time, and you're never sure when it is going to come into the mix. We could see him look like 40 in this fight. We didn't see it last fight, but we could see a little bit of that in this fight. I'm not expecting it, but who knows how things will play out. But even though he is 40, to me, he's still slightly fresh to me, right? And I say that because he's got a lot of stoppages within the first 4 rounds of his fights. Hasn't taken a whole lot of damage, right? And again, as I said, I think he's improving as his career, as he's been getting old. The nickname, the Big Bang, like that's a real name, right? Like he's got power in his hands and he can change the fight in a single shot, but he's also a guy that is a very good combination puncher, especially for his size. Let's go back a little bit. When he fought Jerry Forrest, I don't know what kept Jerry Forrest up in the early part of that fight because he took some heavy punches. Zhang dropped him a few times early in the fight, but credit to Forrest because he did not just get back up, but he fought his way back into the fight. He threw a lot of punches to keep Zhang punching less is one, and keep him on the back foot. When Big Bang isn't coming forward, man, that's great because he can't be on the offensive. He can't let that left hand go. He can't get his shots off and get into his groove. So Forrest was able to push him back and be physical. And the fact that he was so consistently throwing punches, he was tiring Zhang out as Zhang was trying to counter on the back foot, but Forrest never really let him get comfortable past a certain part in that fight. He just kept being in his presence, kept being in his face, kept putting that body on him, kept tying him up, kept trying to make it a very uncomfortable fight for the Big Bang. Even though Forrest was knocked down 2 or 3 times in that fight, he still fought himself to a draw. You know what I'm saying? So what we noticed in that fight was how exhausted Zhang was going into the second half of the fight. Right now, there were some news that came out that he was having some problems, some kidney problems. He was dehydrated, and it just wasn't, he wasn't able to really put forth a way how to finish the fight because of the physical disadvantages that was going on inside of his body. I also heard that he had to go to the hospital right after the fight, and he stayed there a couple days. So it seemed like there was a bunch of different things that was going on that did not allow him to really capitalize on the momentum that he had against Jerry Forrest. But we cannot discredit Jerry Forrest for how he fought in this fight and fighting his way back into the fight and getting a draw. A few fights later, he stepped into the ring to fight Filip Hrgović, a guy that many people, well, on the outside were saying, man, nobody wants to fight this guy. Hrgović is an avoided dark horse, an avoided heavyweight. Nobody wants to fight this guy. Well, Zhang gonna fight anybody as the opportunity is there. Zhang caught Hrgović with a clubbing shot that just pushed his head down and his body down, and he got himself a knockdown in that first round. Anytime Zhang was made the commitment to let his hands go, man, Hrgović was feeling it. Hrgović was on his back foot, right? And he was feeling every single punch. Every time at the Big Bang decided to let that right hand go and that left hand go and add a little bit of spice and flair to the combinations, man, sometimes it didn't seem like Hrgović was going to be able to take it and stand and finish the fight. But to his credit, he took some of those shots really good. So I got to give him credit for the chin that we found out that Hrgović does have. And in that fight, I also saw a better display of defensive prowl of Big Bang. Because Hrgovic, man, he was putting forth some really nice combinations, but Big Bang, he was finding ways how to limit some of the potential damage. Whether he was blocking them with his hand, with his high guard, not all of those shots were getting forth and were landing cleanly. Zhang was blocking some of those shots intentionally. Right? Zhang isn't a stellar defender by no means, but I thought he was doing a good job in that fight. He's much sneakier and faster and a little bit more agile than he looks, that he doesn't get credit for. Hrgovic looked like he was trying to buy himself time to hold back a little bit at the beginning of the fight to say, you know what, I've seen enough tape on him to know that he does tire out a little bit later throughout the fight. So to me, Hrgovic wasn't throwing a whole lot early, but once it got to the 7th, 8th, 9th, and beyond those rounds, that's when you could start to see him let his hands go a little bit more, because he was expecting Zhang to get tired. But Zhang was tired, but Zhang still turned it up a little bit more as well too. And to be quite honest, man, in those last 3 rounds, to me, even though both men were very tired, Zhang was the one that was still slightly doing a little bit more to finish those rounds for me. I thought he was more consistent with his shots. I thought he did more damage to Hrgovic in those last 3 rounds than Hrgovic did to him. So I was very surprised when Hrgovic got a unanimous decision victory. I didn't see it like that. Maybe you did, but I didn't see it like that. I thought Zhang did enough on the night to get the win. So I thought it was a very close fight throughout that fight, but an unfair outcome, or at least one that I don't agree with, because the outcome is the outcome. But it seemed like Zhang was starting to figure things out a little bit more and how to still be in control, even though he was tired. And going to those championship rounds, man, again, I felt like Zhang did a little bit more in those rounds to win the fight. But again, it was a fight that Hrgovic was supposed to be this guy who dominates and people are avoided, to someone saying, wait a minute, maybe we should be thinking about Zhang as this way as well too, because even though he's a little bit older, he's still performing at a very high level and he can punch. Whenever you got guys that can punch and skillful with it, it's something to always keep in mind. You can't count them out. In his next 2 fights, he goes to fight Joe Joyce, the juggernaut, you know, someone who embodies that persona of the juggernaut. If you've seen X-Men, you know who the juggernaut is. A guy who comes forward in the cartoons, comes forward, smashes his head through the walls with his head. And Joe Joyce, you see why they call him the juggernaut, because he's very one-dimensional. You know what he's going to do. He's going to come forward. He's going to come at you, let his hands go, left, right, hooks, hooks, hooks. And he's not going to evade those shots. He trusts himself enough. He trusts his head enough that he can take all of your shots and still walk through and coming forward and still imposing his physicality and his size on you at the right time. And to that point, it was the truth. But then he fought Big Bang, and Big Bang just kept banging him to the head. Banging him to the head every single round. What was interesting about that fight to see, man, was everything that Zhang did was very accurate and precise. It wasn't him swinging for the stars. It wasn't him swinging for survival. It wasn't him in fearful of anything that was coming back his way or who the opponent was. It was very surgical. Right? If you're just going to come at me, okay, cool. I'm going to pick you apart. I'm going to target that eye. I'm going to target this piece of your body. And every single time you come at me and you think that you can just take my shot, okay, cool. I dare you. Big Bang just kept banging him and banging him every single time to the same spot. He is a very accurate and precise puncher. The placement in his punches were exceptional on that night. He was very sharp that night. You could see the confidence start to rise every single round. And in the second fight, he picked up where he left off in the first fight, but just did it a lot quicker and a lot more viciously. You saw that knockout, that in close snap of the hand closed out the show. It was a beautiful shot from Big Bang to close out an opponent that has not been stopped before, an opponent that seemed like he was going to be on his way to being a champion down the road. Someone who has been taking shots and nobody seemed to be able to discourage Joe Joyce. And Zhang discouraged him the first fight in the sixth round by stopping him 3 rounds earlier than he did in the first fight. That is a dangerous opponent if you just let Zhang have his way with you, because you take what he can do for granted. He's crafty, right? He's calculated. He's a disciplined fighter. And even at the age of 40, he is continuing to improve and to get better at what he does. He's not just a guy who's going to come forward and bulldoze his way to victory. He could, but he adds a little bit more tactic and calculated approach to it. And that's why Big Bang is dangerous, man. Because, yeah, we know he can punch, but with the accuracy and how he goes about fighting those openings and the IQ that he has, it makes it a lot difficult to prepare for him. But Joseph Parker, no slouch. He doesn't dodge anybody, and he's fought some of the top heavyweights in the division for years. Let's talk about him. Joe Parker, 34 wins, 3 losses, 23 wins by way of knockout. Joseph Parker. Shout out to Joseph Parker, man. I felt like we were just talking about Joseph Parker. That's probably because we were 2 months ago when he fought Deontay Wilder, but 2 months before that, right? He fought Simone Keane. 2 months after that, he fights Deontay Wilder. So he's been on this 2-month fight training camp and then fighting. So you got to give him credit for that. The man is staying active, so he's in a sharp stance. He seems like since he's been working with his new trainer, he's got this resurgence in his confidence in his career. So we know he's feeling good. He's confident. And after how he dominated Deontay Wilder, he is feeling like he could probably do the same against Big Bang. And activity is always good. And he's been looking good as well. Parker, to me, is a good combination of a guy who can box, but also a guy who's got good pop on him, right? A guy who can find and create his own openings, and he's quick enough to capitalize on it and get out the way. So he can beat you in 2 different ways. Let's talk about his last fight, because there are some similar things that if he and his team can game plan the right way, that can work in his favor, as it did when he fought Deontay Wilder. When he fought the Bronze Bomber Deontay Wilder, man, he fought a very calculated fight, right? He took advantage of a hesitant Deontay Wilder, and he brought the fight to him right out the gate. He made Wilder become more of a boxer, had him moving more on the back foot and laterally than him coming forward and loading up that right hand and trying to get his shots off, right? He didn't give Deontay Wilder too much space for him to be able to be comfortable, for him to be able to really get that separation and generate the power that he needed. Parker took the fight to him, right? He took away that little space. Every time that Parker would miss a shot, he would make sure he was close enough to wrap him up so Deontay couldn't fire anything back. And what I liked about Parker in that fight was the different ways how his shots were getting through, right? Whether it was overhand shots, whether it was body shots, whether it was from in close and slipping in uppercuts, he was finding different ways to be effective. So he was very unpredictable in that fight, and that's great. Deontay Wilder, you know what he's going to do, what he's trying to do. He's trying to set up that right hand. But if you don't allow him space to really do that, if you take away the space for him to really load up and generate the power, it's going to be tough for him to really be as impactful as he normally is. And we see it a bunch of different times as well, too, throughout that fight. There were times when maybe Parker overcommitted a little bit and Deontay Wilder ducked and got out the way. He made sure that he was wrapping up that shoulder and that right hand so you couldn't hit him with anything, right? I like the fact that Parker in that fight was very intentional about what his head was doing, what his body was doing. There'd be times when Deontay Wilder would load up on that right shot, boom, and try to put it forth, and Parker would duck it and weave it and get out the way and cover him up. So he was very intentional, and he knew the game plan, and he was disciplined and trustful enough to know if I stick to the game plan, I'm going to be able to take Deontay Wilder out of this fight completely. And so that's exactly what he did, man. And you got to a point where after the 6th or the 7th round, yeah, there is a second half of the fight left, but you got to a point where you said to yourself, man, if Deontay Wilder is going to win this fight, he is going to have to knock out Joe Parker because he's been getting outboxed, outworked, out everything to this point. And you thought that Wilder was going to be able to find his way back into it a little bit, or you were a little bit cautious every time you threw that right hand. If you were a Joseph Parker guy, you could know that at any moment, if that shot connects, it could change things. But Parker, to his credit, disciplined, focused, and stuck to the game plan. And it was just a really, really good, solid fight for him. I thought he fought well, and he put himself now back in a position to be in this position, right? So Parker is going to come into this fight with a great game plan. We definitely have to believe that. His team, definitely, they will. But can he execute the same way? Zhang is going to let his hands go much more than Deontay Wilder did, and he's not going to be hesitant about it either. The other thing is, can he weather the early part of Zhang's onslaught and wait till the right time if he does tire out and take advantage of him? That's a possibility as well, too. He can do it, but can he do it on the night? That's obviously something that we will see when that fight does happen on March 8th. So who wins? Again, as I said, I'm sure Parker and his team is going to come in with a very, very strategic and calculated game plan, as they did against Deontay Wilder. They're going through the same against Zhilei Zhang. So they're going to be fully prepared for this. His confidence is through the roof right now. But does Parker have enough power to keep Zhang off of him? Zhang is a bigger figure physically than Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder is taller, but Zhang is 6'6". Deontay's 6'7". Zhang is 6'6", but he's going to be closer to 260 pounds, and he's a lot more athletic than he looks. So they're different physical presence. Does Parker have the power to gain the respect of Zhilei Zhang so he doesn't just come walk forward? What is the game plan of Zhang? Is he going to be patient? Is he going to bide his time? Is he going to try to rush in and try to get this fight over with early? How is he going to contain his energy, his output? So these are all things that we really have to think about. At least I think about, right? Because we know he does have a tendency to tire out as the fight goes on, right? And that's always something that we have to keep in mind from the game plan. Can Zhang cut off the ring is another thing as well, too. Can he cut off the ring and stop the movement of Parker? I think Parker is going to be a little bit more on the back foot in this fight because he has to be careful not to get caught with that left hand, right? And so he has to bide his time. So it's going to make things a lot more interesting. Zhang moves a little better than he looks, you know, so it's going to be interesting to see how he does cut off the ring and what the strategy is there. This is going to be a very good fight, man. It could be a fight that steals the night, in my opinion. Like, it has a type of potential. And obviously, the better man is going to win on the night with the right game plan. Love the confidence as Parker. Love how he handled himself against Wilder. But at the same time, I think this is going to be a tougher fight for Parker than it was when he fought Deontay Wilder, because Zhang is not going to hesitate to let his hands go. He will let his hands go. So that's going to be interesting to see how Parker handles that when he does. And if he does get clipped, Bang has that power that could really change the momentum of the fight. So I like Zhang to win this fight by late stoppage. I think Parker has to be careful as well. If he can evade that left hand, I think he can find a way to win this fight. It's a close fight, but I just think Zhang is going to find a way to get it done on the night. I think at some point the pressure is going to be a little bit too much, and he's going to get cornered, and Zhang is going to land one of those signature left hands that really closes out the show. What are your thoughts on this fight? Who do you have winning this one? Let me know in the comment section below. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a couple ways that you can do so. You can like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support by way of donation, you can find options in the description below. Also, my Cash App handle will be on screen as well. Any amount goes towards the growth of this channel. It will be greatly, greatly appreciated. Shout out to everybody that continues to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, man. I appreciate each of you. So with all that being said, if you've been watching the video, this time do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, and we'll definitely see you next time.